Hi DayQ fam!
Hey DayQ fam!
Welcome back to our channel!
Welcome back!
We're back! We're back! I feel like we're always back on a Monday, like we're here!
Where are you?
Hey! No, seriously though, 6:30 BST
on a Monday.
On a Monday, we out
Tune
here.
in.
I feel like we're loyal now, like we're loyal to this Monday slot. Are you loyal? That's the question. But anyway, on a Monday, we're always going to be posting relationship talks type videos, right? So, recently on this series, we've been talking about cultural competence. How do you deal with people who are different?
Yeah. We're not that different, are we?
Very different to yourself. Because of the struggle that we've been facing, we thought we'd share with you how we've overcome it.
Yeah.
In our first video, we spoke about...
We just dished the dirt.
Yeah.
We just spoke about all our differences.
Yeah.
And then in our second video, we spoke about how we overcame those differences. And now we are speaking about the biggest difference in our relationship.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's the fact that I'm a man and Annabella is a woman. I'm the husband and she's my wife.
Yeah.
And now, biologically, we are different, but it's like, how do we navigate this difference?
Yeah, and how do we define what a man is and what a woman is?
Yeah.
It comes from our households, it comes from society,
and what we've seen in our past, how I saw my dad lead my mom, how Annabella saw her mom navigate through that, and that kind of defines our perception on what we feel like a man is supposed to do and what we feel a woman's supposed to do.
Yeah, so we brought both of those into this relationship and it was like, oh, we have different definitions. How do we work through that little struggle? Which is a big struggle.
So the way that the video is going to be structured, we're going to have a screen that will come up and that will basically say a question and we're going to answer those questions. Those questions kind of came from our DayQ fan group.
Yeah, man, that group is lit. Thank you so much. Like, guys, sending videos, sending, you know, opinions and whatever. Like, thank you so much. So basically, this one's focusing on gender roles, like how
in the household.
Yeah, in the household. How do we define them?
Yeah.
So yeah, let's do this. What were the gender roles in your family home growing up?
So in my household, I grew up with my dad being the breadwinner. He was the one who went out and worked, whilst my mom stayed at home and looked after us. And the reason my mom decided to stay home and look after us was because she took me to one after school club and then they fed me Jacob's crackers. And my mom was like, hell no.
What? Jacob's crackers?
Hell no is my son eating Jacob's crackers. She was like, my son will eat jollof with plantain and chicken and stew. Woo!
So his family was like a proper traditional family, right?
Yeah, where my mom was
African household.
Definitely. And what else? My mom was a nurturer. So my mom would be responsible for, like I said, cooking. She'd be cleaning. She'd be
Your dad ever cook?
He makes scrambled egg once.
I'd pay to do that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, you can't imagine what that cooking.
Yeah, no, at all.
Yeah.
Has he even been in the kitchen?
Yeah, he walks through to get his food and goes out. But anyway, yeah. So my mom was the one who was looking after the household and all that kind of stuff. And my dad was like kind of the dominant force within the household. So when it came to making big decisions like what TV are we gonna buy, that was dad. When it came to are we going on holiday, that was dad. You know, when it came, like, my mom would just make the day-to-day, but my dad was literally, whatever he says, goes.
Did he consult your mom or was it like...
No, it was kind of one way, you know, just... Love you, dad, but you know, you are the man, but it was just, you know, my mom was just like, oh, okay, whatever you say.
Yeah, okay, cool. My household was completely different because obviously I come from a single parent household. My mom was the ultimate boss. My mom was the... homemaker. My mom was the breadwinner and she did all of it so well. And that's what I saw in my household growing up. I didn't actually see the point of men because I was like, well, my mom was bringing home good bacon. She is, you know, doing everything, looking after the household. It was all... So imagine, we both bring those two perspectives. Me, miss, all the women who is better, throw your hands up at me. And then he comes with like,
what are you doing?
Where's my food?
Where's my food?
Where's my food, G?
All this energy but no food.
So yeah, that's basically the household that we grew up in.
What are the gender roles in your household now? And how did you decide who does what?
So we came into marriage like, oh, you know, we're gonna work this out, it's gonna be all good. But it was a shambles when we first began, let's not lie, right? Mate, I was here in the house trying to do everything. I was trying to be like his mum, but with a full-time job. Like, mate, I was running around. Remember how many breakdowns I'd have? I'm just so tired.
So she does this thing where she's like, I'm just overwhelmed.
It's just so hard.
It's so hard. Women have so much pressure on their head. And then she'll cry. And then
Anyways, but we thank God, a year later, and I feel like we've just got such a well-oiled machine in the household, right? Like, we worked it through. I do all the cooking. I don't expect Gabe to even touch a pot. Like, I cook all the food in the house.
I appreciate you.
But Gabe does all the cleaning.
Yeah.
Like, when the house is a mess, I'm like, Gabe's, the house is messy.
Yeah.
Sort it out.
Yeah, I don't, like, the thing, I can cook, mum raised me up well, but, you know, when it comes to cooking, I don't know what it is, but I just use every pot, I use every pan, and,
It's just better for society if it just does not cook.
Yeah, and Anna, when it comes to cleaning, it's like, have you even cleaned? So
because Gabe's very thorough and detail orientated, it's better if he cleans. I'm quick, so it's better if I cook.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, we work to our strengths.
Yeah, we work to our strengths. We just have a system that works for us.
Yeah.
And we just play to our strengths rather than saying, why am I doing all the cooking? You shouldn't be doing all the cooking.
Yeah.
Like, it's just more efficient for us so that we can actually
get stuff done
quickly so that we can spend time together.
Yeah. And one of the questions in the DayQ fam group was like, oh, if, you know, a woman doesn't know how to cook, what does that mean for the household and all that stuff? Like, how would we navigate through that then?
Yeah, if either person can't cook or they both can't clean or whatever, there still has to be some sense of willingness. It doesn't mean that the woman has to be in the kitchen, because I know in some relations that the man is actually the better cook and he's the one that takes the responsibility. It doesn't matter what you do, it's just that there has to be a sense of willingness to actually contribute to the household. I think that's very important, especially because we're both working full-time, and that's a choice that we've made. We actually said, you know, we want to actually be striving in the workplace, want to bring home that bacon.
No!
You know? Yeah.
And London's expensive, bro.
Yeah, London's expensive as well. So we've actually made the conscious decision to actually both work. So there's consequences to that. That means I have to get my elbows dirty in the household. So yeah.
And what if, like, a girl can't cook? Is that a detriment to me getting a husband or whatever?
That is a very big detriment. But I think it's a detriment for both parties.
Yeah.
I think, like, before in society, it was no excuse for women not to be able to cook. But I think now it's true for men as well. So regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, both of you need to be domesticated. So if you can't cook now, look, there's no excuse. There's YouTube, there's cookbooks out there. Learn how to cook. Same for men. Like, I don't think there's any excuse for any party if you can't cook or you can't clean.
Yeah, because for me as a woman, like, if we went through our whole courtship and Gabe didn't think to cook for me once, or I didn't see him clean or do anything in the house, and he was just one of those men that just sit there, like, for me personally, that would not be the type of man that I'm attracted to. That's a red flag. Like, I know the kind of woman that I am. I know that I'll be working a lot, and I don't have the ability to actually, you know, be in the house all the time. That's just not my desire at this stage. So I would not be looking for a man who was just sitting down in the household. Like, that's not something I'm attracted to. So it's about asking yourself questions like, what type of man am I looking for? What type of woman am I looking to be? And who can actually compliment me that in the future?
Exactly. Yeah, so the choice we've made is we're working.
Yeah, both of us. And that means we're both working in the household as well. What are your thoughts on leadership and submission? The S word! I used to hate that word, in the submission. Me, submit. Me, big woman. Boss. I know.
She's like a fly. A small mosquito.
I was that girl. That was a mosquito. But I was like, me, submit. And anyway. But yeah, I've come far, guys. I've come far. What are our thoughts, baby?
When it comes to, like, work and that kind of stuff, Anna is striving, she's doing amazing, she's earning relatively the same salary as me, and we're both pushing forward, and that is all good and well. But when it comes to the household, I'm the boss. Go and do a little thing in sales, be a boss in society. When you come to my household, you best get to know. You know, the thing is, this doesn't mean that Annabella is inferior to me. It doesn't mean that she's incompetent. We're both very competent people. We're both doing amazing things, but there has to be a sense of order in a household. And what does the order mean? It means that I take responsibility. It doesn't mean that I make every decision in the household, which is what most people think, but it means I take responsibility for, you know, making decisions that take into consideration everything in the household.
Yeah.
So it's not just my needs, but sometimes I even make decisions that's against what I even want to do.
Yeah, for the sake of the household.
For the sake of the household.
Like, responsibility is such a big thing because, like, I could have done an action, but Gabes has to take responsibility of it because he oversees the household. Like, that is the depth of what it means to be the head of the household. Like, I'm going through something, but he has to deal with the consequences of it because it's his responsibility. He has to respond to God for how well he led the household. I have to respond to God about how well I submitted to Gabes. Like, I don't know which responsibility you'd rather have, but I know which one I'd rather have. Like, personally, I think it's like, it's less pressure. Like, it's hard for men, and if we look at it from that perspective as women, and men actually don't look at leadership just as, oh, you do this, you do that, I listen to me, but see it as like, wow, I'm called to potentially even die for my wife and for my children. That's a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the relationship between a husband and wife is supposed to represent the relationship between Christ and the church. And if you see Christ as the person who actually laid himself down for the church, like, when it comes to laying down pride, when it comes to laying down your ego, when it comes to laying down your own desires, like, we should be able to do that as men for the sake of our bride. And if you look at the way Christ lived his life, he lived it through service, he lived it through love, he initiated things. Like, as men, let's lead our wife spiritually, let's, or, you know, wash her with the word, let's read the word together. You know, we have our individual relationship with Christ. When it comes to, like, you know, I'm responsible for making sure that we get to church. I'm responsible, like, hey babe, what have you read over the last week or so? Like, let's talk about it. Like, just initiating things to keep the wheel going. Because sometimes you could be two people in a relationship with no one taking responsibility, and then you just become stagnant in certain area. But someone has to rise up and say, hey, I'm taking responsibility to make sure that our family is successful and now we're actually moving forward. Yeah,
and I always think of like an organization, like there's only one CEO, and regardless of whether it was the HR director, sales director who made a bad decision that was bad for the business, like the CEO is the one that has to account to the stakeholders and say, you know, this is what went wrong. He's not there blaming other people and saying all this. He's literally taking ownership of that because he's been entrusted with the business. And it's the same with marriage. Like, men, there's a big responsibility on them to take ownership of the household, and regardless of when my emotions are just going all over the place, because I remember at the beginning of our relationship, like, I would really find it hard to just like agree if I didn't agree with what Gabes is saying or go with it. But at the end of the day, we can't be both going in different directions because that's not good for the household. We have to be aligned. And sometimes that means, well, all the time, I have to submit to what Gabes has said, regardless of whether it's the decision that I wanted or not. Because he's the one that is in the steering seat of our relationship.
However, when it comes to this whole leadership thing, like, over time, like, the way when we started our relationship, or when we started our marriage, sorry, Annabella used to struggle, and it was a trust thing. And as we've you know, progressed in our relationship, she's been able to trust me because she sees the decisions that I'm making are not for my own gain. And I think sometimes that's the fear in our society that we've seen from bad examples in the past, where men will just make decisions for their own gain and for their own desires and neglect their wives, and then, you know, just do whatever they want to do. But that's not the case. That's not what men are called to do, and we held account for that by God. So we just need to sometimes lay our lives down and make the best decisions for our wives and our family. So if we just give you a real life example of what's happened recently. Okay, so I have just moved into a new job, and one of the perks is that I'm able to have a car, and I pay a reduced amount, so they take it out of my gross salary, and it's basically cheaper for me. So I came home and I put together a proposal for Annabella, and I was like, hey babe, we can get a car, it's gonna be amazing, it's gonna be a nice car, it's gonna be brand new, like the company gives you a brand new car. I was like, yes! Came home to Annabella, she's like, we don't need a car. When are we gonna use the car? What did you say?
How much is still?
How much is the car? Okay, it's still relatively cheaper than if we were to go and buy the car by ourselves. But do we actually need a car this time? It's going to be this month and much a year. And although it was very challenging for me, because man, look, I've been wanting a car. I've sacrificed a lot. Look, I've married this girl. I sacrificed so that I could pay for the ring. I sacrificed so I can pay for the wedding. Now we're in our house and I'm like, I just want a car. Please, can I have a car? But she was like, and I had to really just like I had to really take what she was saying into perspective, because at the end of the day, I married this woman and I chose her among many women. So there's something in her that I valued, and it's the way that she thinks, the way that she carries herself. So if I just, you know, just say, oh, I want a car, and I get a car without taking her into consideration, then what was the point of getting married? There's this old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So really, to me, that just basically means that I have to encompass Annabella into my decision-making process so that we can make the decisions so that we can go far together. So for me, we're not getting a car, by the way. However, what I will say is that if I made a decision to get the car, Annabella would have still supported me in that. So I had ultimate responsibility or decision making for getting the car. However, we went through a thought process together of how whether we're gonna get the car.
And that's why two are meant to be better than one. If I agreed on every single decision or every single thought that he had, then what's the point of me? Like, the fact is, we both think differently, and I'm here to scrutinize his thinking in an encouraging way. Scrutinize what he's thinking and bring a different perspective, so that together we're coming around to a better decision because of that. And that's how even organizations actually fundamentally operate like that. Like, they sit on a board meeting, they talk about things, they scrutinize on each other's ideas, and then they come to a decision that they think is best for the business. And that's the same with a household. Like, Gabe's is the head, he'll make the final decision, but I'm here to scrutinize, to challenge, to encourage, so that we can come to the best decision.
And it's just that responsibility. Sometimes I look at pastors and I'm like, oh wow, like they said I've been married for 40 years, I'm married for 50 years. I've made it my responsibility so that I'm able to utter those words as well. That means I'm responsible for the overall health of our family. So when it comes to like arguing and stuff, regardless who's in the wrong, regardless who's in the right, I'm gonna take the responsibility for reconciling our relationship. Like, I'll tell now, I am a pest when it comes to like us. You know, I'm like, babe, are we friends yet? Are we friends yet? Like, we have to take the responsibility for those things. We can't wait for an apology, because a day can turn into a week, and a week can turn into a month, and next thing you know, you're drifting apart. And don't wait for the wife. Jump in.
But wives, as you know, your man is also growing in leadership. Like, not a lot of men don't have great role models as fathers, and like, it's hard for them. They're trying to navigate. Like, Gabe has grown so much in his leadership ability, and obviously there's that trust element, but just encourage them, like, be their #1 fan, and like push them towards making decisions. Like, sometimes you might have an opinion, but why do you have to say it every single time? Why, you know, sometimes,
you know, like when you're in the car and the person in the passenger seat always thinks that
always they're commentating.
Like yesterday,
Anyways, basically, I don't know, we can encourage our men to take on leadership responsibilities, and sometimes we can be the hindrance. So that's basically what we've learned with this whole leadership and submission thing. Like, sometimes, you know, you try to do things your own way, but you realize that God actually says things for a specific reason. So what it's about is us realigning our thought and finding a way to make his word come into fruition into our marriage. We hope that video made sense, because I know we went kind of...
we struggled to kind of put together a video because we know it's a controversial subject. But literally, all we can say and all we can do is just read the Bible, and whatever it says, we try and do, as hard as it may be. Regardless of how far removed society gets, we still believe in the principles of the Bible, and like, literally,
that's the only way that our relationship's gonna work in the long haul. Like, at the end of the day, there's so much going on around us, and it's very scary seeing all these relationships break up and everything, but we just want to stick to the word, because it's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And if we stick to that, we know that we're gonna stay together. So we just thought we'd share what gender roles look like in our household, and how we're trying to navigate through. We don't have all the answers, we're still learning, we don't know. We've only been married 1 year, but so far that's what we've done, and it's like really, really doing well well. Like our relationship is actually growing and going from strength to strength. Like we can see fruit from the way that we've decided to
day
do
in,
this.
day out, just making the conscious right decisions that we feel at that point in time, putting our pride aside, taking responsibility and moving forward for the sake of the household. Yes.
That's the hardest thing. I'm biting my lip more since we got together, right?
Yeah. No, I'm joking. We're just learning a lot, and each day is a lesson to be learned. So just
So guys, thank you so much for watching. We've got another part to this series coming out next week. But yeah, if you like this video, please comment, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you again.